Good morning everyone. Myself is Kiran, my lecturer in physics working at Government City College. Today, now we are going to discuss about the aberrations. Aberrations are defects of a lens. The simple equation derived from a lens between object and image distances, radii of curvature, refractive index, focal length, etc. are based on the following assumptions. The incident rays made small angles with this principal axis. The aperture of the lens is small and a point object gives a point image. In practice, however, lenses are used to form images of points situated off the axis also. Moreover, due to the finite size of the lens, the cone of the light rays which forms the image of the point object is a finite distance. We know that deviation produced in any ray depends to the height of its points of incidence. On the lens, different rays come to focus at different points. Thus, the image is not sharp. Also, the refractive index and hence the focal length of a lens are different for different wavelengths of light. When the incident light is not monochromatic, different colors are focused at different points. Thus, the lens forms a number of images of different colors at different positions. The deviations from the actual size, shape, and positions of an image as calculated by simple equations are called aberrations produced by a lens. The defects are mainly due to light. If the light is not monochromatic, then the image becomes multicolored and the defect is called as a chromatic aberration. Next is due to optical system. Even with the monochromatic light, several defects in shape of image are formed. They are known as monochromatic aberrations. There are five types: spherical aberration, coma, astigmatism, distortion, and curvature. Next is chromatic aberration. The chromatic aberration is due to the fact that refractive index varies with the color. We know that the focal length f of a lens is given by 1 by f equals to mu minus 1 into 1 by r1 minus 1 by r2, where the symbols have their usual meanings. As the refractive index mu for violet color is greater than refractive index mu for red color, hence focal length for red color is greater than the focal length for violet color. Thus, when a parallel beam of white light is refracted through a lens, violet rays meet first and the red rays meet at farthest from the lens, as shown in the figure. The rays of intermediate colors meet in between FR and FV. If a screen is placed at FV, then the center of the image would be violet while the outer surface will be red. Similarly, if a screen is placed at FR, the center of the image will be red while the outer surface would be violet. For all other positions between FV and FR, the image is blurred. Thus, the image of a white object formed by a lens is colored and blurred. This defect of image is known as chromatic aberration. The chromatic aberration is of two types: longitudinal chromatic aberration and lateral chromatic aberration. Longitudinal chromatic aberration. As shown in the figure, as shown in the figure, a white object O situated on the axis of a lens. Its violet and red images on the axis are shown as IV and IR. The formation of images of different colors in different positions along the axis is known as longitudinal aberration, chromatic aberration. The distance between IV and IR is the measure of longitudinal chromatic aberration. Therefore, longitudinal chromatic aberration equals to IR minus IV. If the object is at infinity, then the longitudinal aberration is a difference between the focal lengths for red and blue colors. The longitudinal chromatic aberration is said to be positive when the image is formed from IP to IR along the direction of incidence. Now next one is lateral chromatic aberration. As shown in the figure, a convex lens and an object AB placed in front of the lens. The lens forms the image of white object AB as BVAV and BRAR in violet and red colors. The images of other colors lie in between the two. It is obvious from the figure that the image of red color is larger than the image of violet color. Thus, the images of different colors are formed at different sizes. This defect is known as a lateral chromatic aberration. This is due to the fact that the magnification This is due to the fact that the magnification of white object is different for different colors. We know that magnification equals to size of the image divided by size of the object. That is, distance of the image is divided by distance of the object. As the distances of images of different colors are different, hence the lateral chromatic aberration is accompanied by lateral magnification. The difference BRAR minus BVAV is measure of lateral chromatic aberration. Calculation of a longitudinal chromatic aberration of a thin lens. We calculate the longitudinal chromatic aberration of a thin lens in the following two cases. When the object is situated at infinity. Second case is when the object is situated at a finite distance. Now first we will consider the first case. When the object is situated at infinity, the focal length of a given lens is given by the expression 1 by f equals to mu minus 1 into 1 by r1 minus 1 by r2, where the symbols have their usual meanings. If FV, FR and FY be the focal lengths of the lens for violet, red and yellow mean colors and mu R, mu V and mu Y are the refractive indices, then 1 by FV equals to mu V minus 1 into 1 by R1 minus 1 by R2. Similarly, the other two relations. Subtracting the equation 2 from equation 1, we have 1 by Fv minus 1 by Fr equals to mu V minus mu R into 1 by R1 minus 1 by R2. Fr minus Fv divided by Fv Fr equals to mu V minus mu R into mu Y minus 1 into mu Y minus 1 into 1 by R1 minus 1 by R2. That is FEFR equals to Fy square. Therefore, substituting that, we get Fr minus Fv divided by Fy square equals to omega into 1 by f of y. That is Fr minus Fy equals to omega into Fy, where omega equals to mu v minus mu r divided by mu y minus 1. Therefore, Fr minus Fe equals to longitudinal chromatic aberration. Hence, longitudinal chromatic aberration for a thin lens of an object at infinity is equal to the product of its mean focal length and dispersive power of its length. Now, second condition is when the object is situated at a finite distance. For a thin lens, the relation between u, v and f is given by 1 by v minus and 1 by u equals to 1 by f. When the object is placed at a fixed finite distance u, the distances of image and focal length vary with color. Hence, differentiating equation above equation, we get minus dv by v square equals to minus df by f square. So cancelling the subtracting the negative terms, if the image distances and the focal lengths for violet and red colors be VV and VR and f of V f of R, then dV equals to VR minus VV, dF equals to FR minus FV, that is omega into f of y. Substituting, we get Vr minus Vy by Vy square equals to omega into f of y by f of y square. Vr minus Vy equals to omega into f of y into Vy square. This shows that longitudinal chromatic aberration depends upon dispersive power of the lens material, the mean focal length f of y, the image distance for mean ray, which depends upon u, the object distance. Next is achromatism of a given lens. That is nothing but achromatic doublet. When the two lenses are placed in such a way that the image formed by them is free from chromatic aberration, the combination of lenses is called as a chromatic combination, and the phenomenon is known as achromatism. The minimization or removal of chromatic aberration is termed as achromatism. Now, we have seen that a convex lens from the image of violet color closer to the lens than red color. Again, in case of concave lens, for parallel rays, the violet color is nearer to the lens than red color. By the comparison of two cases, it is observed that although the violet color is focused nearer to the lens in both the cases, but the violet color falls to the left, or red color in case of convex lens and to the right of red color in concave lens. Hence, it is possible that a combination of a suitable convex lens with a concave lens may be free from chromatic aberration. Such combination is called as achromatic doublet. To achieve the achromatic doublet, a crown glass convex lens of low focal length and a flint glass concave lens of greater focal length are used. This condition is essential to keep the combination to function as a convex lens. Now, the two important cases are when the two lenses are in contact with each other, and the second case is when the two lenses are separated by a distance. Now, we will see when the two lenses are contact with each other. Such chromatic doublets are used in microscopes and telescopes as objectives. An achromatic doublet is formed in such a way that all colors come to focus at one point. That is, all colors have the same focal length. In other words, the focal length of chromatic doublet is independent of refractive index mu. For a single lens, 1 by f equals to mu minus 1 into 1 by r1 minus 1 by r2. Where f is the focal length, mu is the refractive index, and r1 and r2 are the radii of curvatures of two surfaces of lens. The change in focal length corresponding to a change in refractive index can be obtained by differentiating the above equation. Therefore, d of 1 by f equals to d mu into 1 by r1 minus 1 by r2. Dividing with the previous equation, we get d of 1 by f equals to d mu by mu minus 1 into 1 by f equals to omega by f, where omega equals to d mu by mu minus 1, that is dispersive power of the lens. Let f1 and f2 be the focal lengths of two lenses in contact, and omega 1 and omega 2 their dispersive powers between the two wavelengths for which the combination is to be achromatized. If capital F be the focal length of the combination, then 1 by capital F equals to 1 by F1 plus F2. The change 1 by capital F can be obtained by differentiating the above equation. D of 1 by F equals to D of 1 by F1 plus D of 1 by F2. Therefore, by D of 1 by F1 can be written as omega 1 F1 and D of 1 by F2 can be written as omega 2 F2. Therefore, D of capital 1 by capital F can be written as omega 1 by F1 plus omega 2 by F2. For an achromatic combination, capital F and hence 1 by F should not change with color. That is, it should be equals to 0. Therefore, omega 1 plus F1 omega 1 divided by F1 plus omega 2 by F2 equals to 0. This is the required condition. The ratio of focal lengths of two lenses in the achromatic doublet is given by F1 by F2 equals to minus omega 1 by omega 2. Thus, the focal length should be in direct ratio of dispersive powers of the two lenses, as omega 1 and omega 2 are positive quantities. F1 and F2 must be with positive signs. This is also the significance of negative sign. In actual practice, one is a biconvex lens of crown glass, while the other is plano-concave lens of dense flint glass. Here, it should be remembered that the combination is achromatic only for two colors or more strictly wavelengths. The focal length for other wavelengths will be different, and this residual chromatic error is known as secondary spectrum. Now, next case, achromatism for two lenses separated by a distance. Now, let us consider two convex lenses of focal length f1 and f2 separated by a suitable distance x. As the material of two lenses is same and hence their dispersive power is also same, now we will derive the condition for achromatism for these two lenses. If capital F is the combined focal length, then 1 by F equals to 1 by F1 plus 1 by F2 minus x by F1 F2. Now the change in 1 by F as the refractive index changes can be obtained by differentiating the above equation. D of 1 by capital F equals to D of 1 by F1 plus D of 1 by F2 minus D of x by F1 F2. Therefore, as proved that as we know that D of 1 by F1 equals to omega 1 by F1 and D of 1 by F2 is omega 2 by F2. Therefore, substituting, we get the equation 3. For achromatic combination, the focal length should not change with the color. Therefore, D of 1 by capital F equals to 0. Therefore, omega 1 by F1 plus omega 2 by F2 minus x omega 1 by F1 F2 minus x omega 2 by F1 F2 equals to 0. This implies omega 1 F2 plus omega 2 F1 by F1 F2 equals to x into omega 1 plus omega 2. That is, x equals to omega 1 F2 plus omega 2 F1 by omega 1 plus omega 2. When the two lenses are made of same material, omega 1 equals to omega 2 equals to omega. Therefore, f of 1 plus f of 2 equals to divided by 2. Thus, the separation between the two lenses must be equal to the mean of focal lengths of two lenses. Now, next is spherical aberration. Consider a point source O of monochromatic light placed on the axis of large aperture convex lens as shown in the figure. Now, the rays which are incident near the axis come to focus at a point IF, while the rays incident near the rim of the lens come to focus at IM. The intermediate rays are brought to focus between IM and IP. It is clear from the figure that the paraxial rays form the image at a point distance than the marginal rays. Thus, the image is not sharp at any point on the axis. The failure or inability of the lens to form a point image of an axial point object is called spherical aberration. The reason is as follows. The lens can be supposed to be divided into circular zones. It can be proved mathematically that the focal lengths slightly vary with the radius of the zone. That is, different zones have different focal lengths. The focal length of marginal zone is lesser than the paraxial zone. Hence, the marginal rays are focused first. The spherical aberration can also be explained by saying that the marginal rays suffer greater deviation than the paraxial rays because they are incident at a greater height than the latter. The distance between IN and IP is the measure of longitudinal or axial spherical aberration. If a screen is placed normal to the principal axis at IM, then the image on the screen consists of circular disc. The disc would be sharply focused at the center, but diffused near the outer edge. A disc image would again be obtained if the screen is placed at IP. If the screen is moved between IM and IP, then the size of disc is minimum in the position AB, where the paraxial and marginal rays cross. Due to smallest cross section, this is known as circle of least confusion. This is the nearest approach to a point image. That is, if the screen is placed in the position AB, then we obtain best possible image of uniform sharpness. The radius of the circle of least confusion is called the lateral chromatic aberration. Next, spherical aberration by plane refracting surface. Consider a plane surface AB perpendicular to x-axis and separating the two media as shown in the figure. Let the refractive indices of the two sides be mu1 and mu2 respectively. Suppose P be an object point on the x-axis at a distance minus x0 from the origin O. In the figure, PQ is a ray incident on the surface AB at height h from O. I is the angle of incidence. QR is the refracted ray in denser medium. The refracted rays appears to merge from a point P1 on the axis. Hence, P1 is the image of P. The distance of P1 from O is minus x1. From Snell's law, mu1 sin I equals to mu2 sin R, where R is the angle of refraction. From triangle P1QO, tan R equals to h by minus x1, or sin R by cos R equals to h by minus x1. x1 equals to h minus of h cos R by sin R, that is minus h into under root of 1 minus sin square R by sin R. Therefore, from that we can write, and from figure we have sin I equals to h by h under root of h square plus x naught square. Substituting, we get x1 equals to minus mu h by h under root of h square plus x naught square into under root of 1 minus h square by mu square into h square plus x naught square. Therefore, by using the binomial expansion, the above equation can be changed as minus mu x naught into 1 plus h square by 2 x naught square into 1 minus h square by mu square x naught square whole power half, neglecting the terms of higher order h power 4. Now, by solving that, we get minus mu x naught into 1 plus h square by 2 x naught square into 1 minus 1 by mu square. Now by solving that we get minus mu x naught minus h square mu by 2x naught into 1 minus by 1 by mu square. For paraxial rays the in limiting case when h tends to 0 reduces to x1 equals to minus mu x naught. Therefore, spherical aberration equals to minus h square mu by 2x naught into 1 minus 1 by mu square. The negative sign shows that non-paraxial rays appear to diverge from a point which is still further away from the paraxial image point. Next is a spherical aberration due to spherical surface. As shown in figure, AB is a spherical surface of radius of curvature capital R. Let an incident ray parallel to the principal axis meets the spherical surface at a height h from the axis. The refracted ray intersects the axis at a point fh. Here, OFH is equal to the focal length FH for rays in zone H. Therefore, FH equals to R plus CFH. Consider a triangle CPFH. We have CPFH divided by sin R equals to R by sin of I minus R. By substituting that we get R sin R divided by mu sin R cos R minus cos I sin R. Since mu equals to sin I by sin R, by substituting that we get R divided by mu cos R minus cos I. Substituting the value of CFH, we get FH equals to R plus R divided by mu cos R minus cos I. That is, taking R common, R into 1 plus 1 by mu cos R minus cos I. For paraxial rays, that is, in the limiting case when H tends to 0, cos I and cos I tends to 1. In case Fp is greater than mu R by mu minus 1, which is equal to Fp, the change in focal length for H zone as compared to axial zone is given by delta Fh equals to Fp minus Fh equals to mu R by mu minus 1 into mu minus R into 1 plus 1 by mu cos R minus cos I. Therefore, from this we get R into 1 by mu minus 1 minus of 1 by mu cos R minus cos I. In general, this represents the longitudinal spherical aberration. The approximate value of spherical aberration can be calculated as from figure sin I equals to h by R. Now, cos I equals to under root of 1 minus sin square I, that equals to 1 minus h square by R square into whole power half, and cos R equals to under root of 1 minus sin square R equals to 1 minus h square by mu square R square into half. Substituting, we get delta Fh equals to R into 1 by mu minus 1 into, mu minus 1 minus 1 by mu of 1 minus h square by 2 mu square R square minus 1 minus h square by 2 R square. Solving, we get delta Fh equals to h square by 2 mu minus 1 whole square f of p, where f of p equals to mu r minus mu minus 1. Therefore, the above equation gives the approximate value of a spherical aberration due to spherical surface. Now, next is following methods by minimization of a spherical aberration. Now, there are so many methods used to minimize the spherical aberration. First one is by means of stops. We know that the spherical aberration is due to different focal length of different zones. The spherical aberration can be minimized by using stops. The stops used may be such a nature that it permits only the axial rays and stops the marginal rays, or permits the marginal rays and stops the axial rays. This method is not generally used since the intensity of the image is very much reduced. Second one is by use of a plano-convex lens. The spherical aberration may be minimized by using a plano-convex lens. It has been observed that the spherical aberration is proportional to the square of the total deviation produced by the lens. If delta is the total deviation produced by the lens and delta 1 and delta 2 are the deviations produced at the two surfaces of the lens, then a spherical aberration is directly proportional to delta square, that is directly proportional to delta 1 plus delta 2 whole square, which is obviously minimum. When delta 1 equals to delta 2, the deviation is equally divided at two surfaces. It is important to note that if a ray parallel to the principal axis is incident on the plane surface of a plano-convex lens, then there will be no deviation at plane surface and the whole deviation will be on the second surface, that is convex surface. So, there is no question of equal deviation at the two surfaces. Similarly, it will be case of when object lies at focus towards curved surface. So, to minimize the spherical aberration, how a plano-convex lens should be placed? Consider the case of a plano-convex telescope objective with convex side facing the object at a far distance. In this case, the deviation will occur at both the surfaces. The longitudinal spherical aberration is shown in figure. If we consider the plane side towards the object, the deviation would be only at the second surface. The longitudinal spherical aberration in this case is as shown in the figure B. Now, hence the general rule to minimize the spherical aberration in a plano-convex lens is that the convex sides should face the incident or emergent beam, whichever is more parallel to the axis. Third one is by using two suitable lenses in contact. It has been observed that in case of convex lens, the marginal image IM lies towards the left of paraxial image IP, while in case of convex lens, the marginal image IM lies towards the right of paraxial image IP. Thus, by a suitable combination of two lenses, the spherical aberration may be minimized. The difficulty with this combination is that it works only for a particular pair of object and image for which it is designed. Fourth one, by using crossed lens. It can be observed mathematically that in case of lens, the deviation by two surfaces will be best. And if R1 by R2 equals to 2 mu square minus mu minus 4 divided by mu into 2 mu plus 1, where R1 and R2 are the radii of curvature of two surfaces and mu is the refractive index of the lens material. The lens satisfying this condition is known as crossed lens. Mu equals to 1.5, R1 by R2 will be minus 1 by 6. Mu equals to 1.66, R1 by R2 equal to minus 1 by 6.5. If mu equals to 1.686, R1 by R2 equal to 0. Therefore, plano-convex lens of mu equal to 1.686 serve as purpose of crossed lens. Now, fifth one, by using two plano-convex lenses separated by a distance. The spherical aberration can be minimized by using two plano-convex lenses of same material placed at a distance equal to the difference of their focal lengths. In this case, the deviation produced in a ray is spread over 4 surfaces and is shared equally by the 2 lenses. Let L1 and L2 be the 2 plano-convex lenses of focal length f1 and f2 separated by a distance small d. Let a ray of light AB parallel to the axis meet the lens L1 at height h1 and suffers a deviation delta 1 equals to h1 by f1. This is directed towards f1 dash. The refracted ray BC strikes the lens L2 at height h2 and suffers a deviation delta 2 equals to h2 divided by f2. The emergent ray meets the axis at f dash, the second focal point of combination. For minimum spherical aberration, delta 1 equals to delta 2. h1 by f1 equals to h2 by f2 or h1 by h2 equals to f1 f2. Now, from the similar triangles BL1 F1 dash and CL2 F1 dash, H1 by H2 equals to L1 F1 dash divided by L2 F1 dash, that is nothing but F1 divided by F1 minus D. From say for D small d equals to F1 minus F2. This is the required condition for minimizing the spherical aberration. Sixth one, by using aplanatic surface, a spherical refracting surface forms a point image of an axial point object where when we consider the paraxial rays. In case of a marginal rays, the image of axial point object will not be point image. This defect is known as spherical aberration. However, this defect may be overcome by the use of aplanatic surface. An aplanatic surface is characterized by the property of forming a point image of a point object placed on the principal axis. The image and object points are known as aplanatic foci of the surface. Now we will show that a spherical refracting surface is aplanatic with respect to the position of the object at a distance r by mu from the center of curvature, where r is the radius of curvature of the surface and mu the refractive index of the denser medium. Consider a point object O situated on the axis of a spherical refracting surface at a distance r by mu from the center C. Capital R is the radius of sphere and mu is the refractive index of its material with respect to the edge. Consider an incident ray OA which makes an angle theta 1 with the axis. After refraction, this ray bends away from the normal CAN and follows the path AB. Again consider a ray OP which strikes the surface normally and goes undeviated. When these refracted rays are produced in the backward direction, they meet at I. Thus, I is the virtual image of object O. Let angle AIC is theta 2. From the figure, angle OAC equals to I and angle NAB equals to R. In triangle OAC, we have AC divided by sin theta 1 equals to CO divided by sin I. That is, sin theta 1 equals to mu sin I. The refraction is taking place from denser to rarer medium. Therefore, sin I by sin R equals to 1 by mu. That is, mu sin I equals to sin I. Therefore, theta 1 equals to sin R. In triangle OAI, external angle theta 1 equals to theta 2 plus R minus I. R equals to theta 2 plus R minus I. Theta 2 equals to I. From similar triangles OAC and ICA, we have CI divided by CA equals to CA by CO. CI equals to CA square by CO. That is mu R. It is now the above equation is independent of theta 1 and theta 2. Therefore, all the rays starting from O and making different angles with the axis after refraction appear to diverge from the same point I. Thus, I is the image of O, which is free from spherical aberration. Now next is coma. A lens free from spherical aberration produces a point image of a point object situated on its principal axis when the point object is situated slightly off the axis. The image of the point object formed by the lens is found to have an egg-like shape. This defect in an image is called as coma. Consider an off-axial point A in the object OA as shown in figure. Let the lens be divided into different zones. Now we consider the image of point A formed by the different zones of the lens. The rays leaving point A and passing through different zones of lens are 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, etc. are brought to focus at different points I1, I2, I3, etc. So the image is not in a perfect focus. This defect is known as coma. It arises due to following reasons. First one, different zones of lens produce different lateral magnifications. Due to this fact, the rays starting from point A and passing through different zones of the lens are focused at different points I1, I2, I3, gradually nearer to the lens. Second one, each zone forms the image of a point in the form of a circle. To make this point clear, we consider a particular zone of the lens as shown in figure. Let the zone has pairs of diametrically opposite points like A, B, B, C, C, D, D as shown in figure. The rays starting from point A and passing through these pairs will be focused. These points lie on the circle called chromatic circle. The radius of the chromatic circle increases as the radius of the zone of the lens increases. Thus at I1, the chromatic circle is a point. Above I1, the circles of increasing radii are obtained. The shapes of these circles are shown in figure. This resultant image is like a comet-like. Now, how we can eliminate this coma? Coma can be reduced to certain extent by the use of a proper stop placed at a suitable distance from the lens. This restricts the outer zones and allows only the central zones to refract the rays. Coma may be minimized by designing the lenses of suitable shapes and materials. For example, a lens with mu is 1.5, R1 by R2 is minus 1 by 9, forms an image of an object at finite distance. Abe show that lenses are completely free from spherical aberration and coma if the following sign condition is satisfied. Mu1 y1 psi1 sin theta 1 equals to mu2 sin y2 sin theta 2. Here theta 1 and theta 2 are the angles with the conjugate rays made with the axis. Mu1 and mu2 are refractive indices of the object and image spaces, and y1 and y2 are the lengths of the object of the image for the zone. When the medium on both sides is same, y2 by y1 equals to sin theta 1 by sin theta 2. Next is now next is astigmatism. When a point object is situated far off the axis of a lens, the image formed by the lens is not in a perfect focus. The image consists of two mutually perpendicular lines separated by a finite distance. Moreover, the two lines lie in perpendicular planes. This defect of the image is called as astigmatism. Point O is a point object situated far off the axis of the lens. Capital M1, M2 is the meridian plane of the lens. That is a plane containing O and the principal axis of the lens. S1 and S2 is the sagittal plane of the lens. That is the plane perpendicular to meridian plane and passing through the principal axis. Now consider the rays from O and passing through the two planes M1, M2 and S1, S2. The rays through the meridian plane after refraction come to a horizontal line focus M, while the rays through the sagittal plane comes to focus farther away from the lens in a vertical line focus S. So if the screen is moved between M and S, an irregular patch of light is obtained. Thus, the image never approaches to a point image. This defect is known as astigmatism. When the screen is moved from S and M, the patch of light reduces to a circle. This is known as the circle of least confusion. This is the nearest approach to a point image. The difference between the lines is a measure of astigmatism and is called as astigmatic difference. Now, how we can remove this astigmatism? The defect of astigmatism may be eliminated by following methods. The astigmatism is due to large inclination of the rays with the axis of the lens. Therefore, if the rays making large angles with the axis are cut off, the defect can be eliminated. This is done with the help of stop by placing